Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Stone, founder of Two Birds, One Stone Learning. We are a language training company based in Columbus, Ohio. We are obviously online. And today I'm meeting with Kaylah. Kaylah is one of our language training consultants, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her Google Slides for online lessons to adult learners. So, Kaylah, thanks for joining today. And I want to talk to you a little bit about first, tell me a little bit about your student. What does he do for work, and what would you say that his current language level is at right now?
So he is an adult learner, and I'm pretty sure he's an accountant. That's what he talks about the most. Right now, he feels very confident in his reading skills in English and also his writing skills, and he really wants to focus on listening comprehension. So, understanding and following conversations and being able to ask questions when he has heard like a large presentation. So, I've designed the slides to model that. So this is our second week of lessons. So the first thing we always do is I point out like everyday phrases that might be used in his everyday life and then also in the workplace. And then we use the question words, which were last week were who, what, where, when, why, and how. And then this lesson it expanded on that. And then we pick topics to create our own questions revolving around the question words. And then we also do a reading comprehension and a listening comprehension to help him really like expand his vocabulary is one, but then also be able to read it and then understand it. And it just makes listening a little bit easier once you're already in the mindset. So the idioms for this week was like first and foremost, beat a dead horse for a rainy day, give the cold shoulder, and get to the bottom of. So we would go through this whole list, and I would explain to him what context you would use it in and where you would hear it most. Why I guess the context why you would hear it the most, and then he usually asks me questions like if I could repeat how to say it and to give him an example of a conversation where these would be used in.
Sure.
So
Let me
we
let sorry.
yeah.
Let me just pause you real quick. I noticed that your lessons have like a special format to them. The design. It doesn't look like that is something that, or maybe I'm wrong. But it doesn't like it's like a basic design that you get from Google Slides. Can you tell me a little bit like where you go to find your like layout designs?
Yeah, so I find different layouts for it because I don't think that Google Slides themes that are already built in are very friendly and opening. So I use like slidesgo.com as well as slidescarnival.com.
Okay.
And then those are the two or Slides Mania is another one I use. And then you just download it and then it goes straight to the Google Slides and then everything is formatted in there for you and you just kind of pick and choose the layout you want and then each one has like its own little icons for you to use as well. And
Okay.
everything is completely free.
Sure. And I guess another thing about how many slides do you have in this particular slide deck?
I have 24.
That's fine. And this is a 60-minute lesson online.
Yes.
Um, with that being said, is there like a particular time that you spend per slide, or it kind of it's kind of the lesson kind of takes a life of its own, and maybe you don't quite get through everything from this slide, which is where you kind of pick up for the next lesson, or just if you could tell me a little bit about how you go through that process.
I usually just kind of go into it presenting it and letting it take a life of its own, always asking questions whether he needs any clarification. He's very advanced in his English skills because he does do a lot of like the reading comprehension on his own time. So that has really helped him like gauge like the past, present tense, and like now like he understands the idioms, he understands like where you would use them. It's a lot of just like the listening comprehension is what takes the most time. So
Okay, very good. So with that being said, if you kind of just want to kind of talk through your slides from where you're at and that sort of thing.
So then we moved after the idioms, we moved on to the question words. And so I always lay them out to explain how you would use them because I think that's a lot more helpful than just saying these are the question words. So, for example, like how much and how many, they're pretty similar, and I could see why someone might think that they mean the exact same thing. So I did explain it like how much is in the uncountable terms, like how much creamer would you like in your coffee? You don't really say like, oh, I want 3 tablespoons exactly. And then how many is like countable terms. How many apples did you buy? I bought 5 apples. So giving him the definitions of each one and then giving him examples has helped him a lot with understanding the differences. So for example, that's what I do. Which movie did you see? Which gym do you go to? Identifying one specific place out of a lot. And
Sure.
then all the slides are like that. And then we moved on to using the question words in practice. And I usually like to pick some topics for him to pick from. So it kind of feels like he has autonomy and a choice and in the lesson, and it's just not me. Like it's all my choice. I want him to feel comfortable with what he's learning. So on this day, he did animals at the zoo, and I laid out all the question words, and then we went through the present tense, and then we went through the past tense. And I did that because present and past tense is something that everyone struggles with. And I think doing this way has helped him reinforce those skills. And he doesn't really need much help with it, but he also likes to do it because it is so essential in the English language. So then we moved on to do that with the food as well. And we also, for this slide, we use the present tense with this week's question words, and then the past tense was last week's question words, which is which, who, when, where, and why.
Okay.
And then we move on to like reading comprehension, which he doesn't really like to do that much because he doesn't like reading out loud, but I encourage the reading comprehension and him reading out loud because it helps with his pronunciation, and it also helps me gauge what words he's having trouble with and having trouble like understanding better than if I read it out loud to him or we just read silently together.
Sure.
So
Um,
yes,
I'm sorry. Let me just uh, stop you real quick to kind of ask a couple questions. So basically, you kind of come up with like 3 different choices for like language and context, where the focal point of the lesson, and then you have like 3 different ways for that to be more of a conversational, a structured speaking practice type of activity after you kind of go through the first part of the lesson. Is that right?
yes. It's not always just like fun everyday topics. Last week we did like business conversations. So, for example, I gave him the scenario of me being a new employee, he being the manager, how he would conduct that conversation with introducing me to the entire workplace. How would he go into his first day of work introducing himself? We've practiced those kinds of conversations too because he is very concerned with the business workplace and professionalism and having those conversations, but he also enjoys like a break from it all.
Sure. And then you obviously part of the spoken component is the pronunciation. So by way of having him read aloud, you're addressing whatever areas you need to address in terms of pronunciation with the student.
Yes. I find it's very frustrating for English second language learners to read out loud because um, they do it a lot slower than they do in their native language, and it's very frustrating, especially if they're stumbling over words. But I usually don't try to correct them too much, or like I don't immediately like tell them how to say the word. If they do struggle over it, because I think it's better for them to be able to sound it out and work it out themselves. And then if it's like taking a significant amount of time, like if we're just sitting there for like 15 seconds and they're still stumbling, then I'll correct it. But I like it to make a point that they get to do it and read it at their own time, because we are not in a rush, and I don't want to be like, okay, you gotta like keep going, like we're almost at time.
Sure. And then I noticed, I think slide 20 is a listening. You'd like to kind of pick up from there.
Yes. So the listening comprehension, this I do it by say so I show him the questions, and then on another screen I would have the passage that I'm reading. So I kind of read it at a very normal level, because I don't want to read it any slower for him, because that's not what people will be doing. So I'll read it, and then he will start with the first question, and then he usually stumbles with it, because what he's told me is that when I read it, after I read one sentence, if he doesn't completely understand it, he's like kind of stays on that one sentence and tries to figure out, and then he just kind of misses everything else.
Got it.
So I usually read it twice for him, and then we go through the questions, and it's okay. I The way I conduct these is that if we're on a question and he's stumbling on something, I usually will read the passage, that area, one more time for him, and then see if he catches it. Most of the time he does. Like for example, last week, there was the first sentence was about Bonnie and Clyde, and it said like the early 20th century. And he had to figure out what that would mean in numerical numbers instead. And he did catch it.
Sure. So
yes.
with that, I'd like to move on to the bottom part, or how you conclude the lesson in terms of gauging. Like, how do you gauge for like comprehension? How do you set things up for the next weekly lesson? If you could take a moment to talk a little bit about that.
So we usually end like around where there's 5 minutes left of the lesson, and then I usually ask him if there's anything that I can go over for him, and he usually tells me he sometimes there it's like no, and then other times he's like, can you go back to the idioms and explain them to me one more time?
Okay.
I usually ask him how he felt while he was doing this, what he felt was the most challenging, what he enjoyed, and he usually he just goes, "Yeah, I liked everything." But he always says, "But I really want to focus on my listening skills, and I really like that's something I feel like I struggle a lot with." And then I kind of just tell him that like it's very understandable that he would like feel more comfortable with reading than he does with listening. And I usually tell him that we'll work on listening next time, and if there's anything that he would like to work on. Um, and he just tells me that listening is what he wants to do. He wants to work on conversations. He wants to be able to keep a conversation with his like coworkers and his friends here. And so we usually so next week I'll probably plan a conversational activity where we're going to be given a topic. I'm going to have the question words written out to just for him, and then we'll practice having a conversation, and that will help with his speaking, his pronunciation, his listening, and then that's really just hitting all of his goals.
Sure. And is there like an expectation or a goal for like him to be practicing like between the lessons, since you're only meeting with him once a week, or is that maybe easier said than done because of the students' busy work schedule? And yeah, if you could just tell me a little bit about that.
He is really dedicated to it, so he is working on like what he can outside of the lesson. And so I think that is why he is so good with his tenses and his reading comprehension and understanding what I'm saying at like the rate that I'm speaking. He he understands all of that, and it's just like the listening, which he can't really practice on his own.
Sure.
But I'm happy to do that for him. But I think I'm pretty sure he does do all this outside. And then I also send him the slides. I make sure to like share them with you so that you can share them with him.
Right.
So they're always there as a reference. And if he did struggle with something, he can go back and see why he struggled with it.
Sure. And then I guess one thing that if we could, as a team, kind of focus on is, and it seems like you're doing okay, but it's just something I just want to reiterate, is making everything specific. So we have, like, obviously we have a specific, we have an excellent structure, but also measurable. So if the student's saying, I want to focus on listening, um, I guess, how long can he listen, or to what percentage can he understand when he's listening? It's kind of hard to assess, but it's you know the reason why we wanted to talk to you about this is because you have excellent structure, and I think that's very important. So that does give us the specifics. We clearly know what's going to take place. Um, at the same time, measurable. How can we measure it? How can we quantify it in terms of vocabulary words, length of listening? And I think this is very good, and I think you really do a good job of covering all this. With that being said, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I guess like I just want to respond to what you said by measurable.
Hmm.
So, I do read each passage twice, but he usually only misses like one or two.
Okay.
So it's like 4 out of 6. And so I think it's just where, so I think when it comes to like doing the listening comprehension and really being measurable, I think I would say that you really have to, I guess, tell them that it's okay if you don't understand everything in the first sentence, but just keep listening. Because I know that when I was learning French and I had to do all these exercises, I felt that I needed to figure out the first sentence to figure out the rest. And that's just not the case. Like, you can't figure like everything out from the first sentence. So you just have to keep going and push past that barrier.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. There's another video on our YouTube channel that talks about making things specific and measurable, and how that's important, especially to the adult learner. And yeah, like I said, this your presentation, Google Slides, your delivery, it is very good. It covers it, and I'm looking forward to showcasing this video on our YouTube channel. Um, with that being said, I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me today to talk about your um, excellent Google Slides, as well as the way you go through it, and how you kind of come up with the content, and things of that nature. Thanks again, and talk to you later.
Thank you.